there's this huge myth that doing cardio is going to make you burn up your muscle. You're going to lose muscle when you do cardio.
Like you're going to eat it up. It is going to fuel your cardio session.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get the fear of losing like maybe all the muscle or losing some of the muscle you put so much work into.
Oh yeah, all the eating, all the lifting. Yeah.
Especially if you're like what they call like a hard gainer.
Oh
right?
yeah.
You know, somebody that has a little bit tougher time. I mean, we can talk about that. I mean,
I've been there, still there.
Yeah, I get it. I wasn't that guy. Like I wasn't. So I know. But at the same time, like, I just wasn't that guy that had a hard time building muscle. Like, and part of it is I had no problem fucking eating ever. I'd eat it till you take it away.
That's awesome.
And then the next part of it is like I loved to lift heavy, and I had access, and some, I guess, like guidance to be able to do that. So that just always kind of sort of came easy for me. But this whole concept or this thought process of, doing cardio, you're going to eat up your muscle, just stop doing that. If you want to put on muscle, then you don't want to do cardio.
Yeah.
Where did this even come from? I mean, like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that myself. I'm like, gosh, I mean, I've heard it.
Yeah.
But when did I hear it and where did it come from? But I can tell you where, like, I think I picked it up. And there's like no education there. I think it was just back in the day, I remember seeing marathon runners and cross-country athletes in high school, and they were always super skinny and they didn't have any muscle. And so
you're drawing the association?
I think that's probably where it might have come from for me initially.
Yeah. So it's been demonized to a certain extent because, like, I don't want to look like that.
Exactly.
Right. So you're basically, it's correlation is causation.
Yeah.
That person's probably
never very lifted weights, by the way.
Yeah, and just genetically, from a build perspective, they're a long, lanky.
They're endurance built.
Yeah, they're built to run long distances. That's just the way they're built. But yeah, clearly the running that they're doing is causing them to look that way.
Absolutely.
Versus now they're taking advantage of the build that they have. If you want to be, maybe they're being smarter than the rest of us. Maybe they had it figured out before us.
It's funny that you talk about like how they look, because if you take like a bodybuilder of the same age, women, runner, same age, woman, the runner is going to look more oxidative, like more broken down. They're going to
are you talking about a long distance runner or are you talking about sprinter?
No, not a sprinter. Sprinter's going to look boom. I like that though.
So you just changed it up because you said very specifically like cross country and marathon runners.
So like long distance, consistently stepping, because as we see the sprinters, they look phenomenal, right? They have the fast twitch muscle fibers activated and all of that. But when we're looking at, if you were just to look at the same person doing bodybuilding, doing this, and now people have different genetical profiles, but the person that's doing the resistance training is going to look more youthful.
Generally speaking.
Right? Because it's more of an anabolic, whereas when we look at cardio, it is catabolic. It breaks down and takes away.
It's going to quote unquote age you.
Exactly. Now that's not me saying cardio is bad. It is great for you. I just want to.
Yeah, but you are drawing some compare and contrast, or like
some people look at like marathon
correlation, causation,
stickly, right?
Yeah. I mean, bottom line is you have to be very efficient. So you don't want to be carrying around a lot of muscle mass over time. There's a power to weight ratio there, right? And obviously, the more you weigh, the more power you have to create. Or the person that can create the same amount of power but weighs 10 pounds less is going to be more efficient.
Yep. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, so there's that balance of things there. But it's interesting. You kind of opened up, or a minute ago we were talking about like the definition of cardio literally talks about we're not burning muscle, and nowhere in the definition of cardio does it say we're burning muscle for fuel.
Yeah, so I'll go over it again.
And even proteins for fuel, which will do, but which will do, but it's not, the energy system doesn't want to do that.
So when we look at an aerobic, what we're talking about cardio, we have oxygen cellularly that is allowed now to burn fat as a fuel source.
Yeah, so you'll hear this term say, hey, fat burns in the flame of oxygen and carbohydrate, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. That's great. And then that's not just a set in stone rule, right? As I increase and decrease the amount of oxygen cellularly, I start going into glycolysis and I have to use glycogen. And this is where we start getting into maybe breaking down muscle or going.
We're moving through the energy system.
Always. Yeah. And it's not just one set or the other. If someone's like, oh, I was at 130 in my fat burning zone, like, dude, you weren't. Your body was switching back and forth. It's just not doing one energy source or one energy system.
Yeah, so it's interesting that gets so fixated on, well, I need to be in my fat burning zone. And at no point, like I did my cardio and I got in my fat burning zone today. And at the same time, they're worried about losing muscle. Well, if you're burning fat, why the fuck are you worried about your muscle?
Exactly.
So again, it's been demonized to a certain extent. And, I think a lot of it stems from the bodybuilding community, right? When we're looking to build, constantly build muscle and mass aesthetically to be able to step on stage. I mean, the industry's just driven that kind of language. It didn't used to always be like that. And I think it's changing a little bit, to be fair.
You are right. And if you guys think about it, like if you've seen any bodybuilder train or coming into a show, they're doing a lot of cardio, and these guys are presenting muscle on stage.
Right. They may or may not be doing, well, the term a lot is relative, right? A lot for them.
You get what I'm saying, right? Like some of these guys are doing an hour out the gate, which is not the way to go, but yet they are trying to maintain and show muscle on stage.
Right.
Right. Which shows that at some point cardio is burning more fat than muscle. It's just how are we implicating it?
Yeah, so I think that's the real question, and that's what people need to wrap their head around is cardio is not going to make you lose muscle. What are the things that are going to cause a deterioration of your muscle, right? And when I say that, I just mean a devolumization, a robbing of nutrients to ultimately to where you are now decreasing muscle mass, right? What are the things that are going to create that?
Atrophy.
Atrophy, right? So what are the things that are going to do that? Well, I mean, let's list them. So some of the basic things would be like, well, if I'm not training the muscle, if I'm not stimulating the muscle to grow, right? I'm not sending the proper signals, it's going to have no reason to do the other thing, which is to hypertrophy, right? To grow or to volumize. So it's going to become efficient. It's just going to kind of go back to where it was or whatever. And anybody that's ever broke their arm or their leg, throw a cast on that thing. I've done it several times in my life. You put that cast, from your foot to your knee, take that thing off and you got the little baby calf there, right? It's just gone, right? It's atrophied. It hasn't had to work. So it's adapted and that's what you're left with. But how long does it take to get that back? Once that
good old satellite cells, baby.
So the body will respond to that once you start sending the signal again. But it's been casted literally, so it hasn't had to work through dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. So that's good. That's a good example. So we haven't stimulated it properly.
Exactly.
Right. That's why muscle may again devolumize and
I think another thing too is the bodybuilding community or just community in general looked at how much am I burning? And this is when metrics and the
biometrics,
came into play here. Where I did cardio for an hour and I burned 800 calories. I worked out for an hour and I burned 430 calories.
Right.
So people were like, well, I'm going to gravitate over here because I'm burning more calories where EPOC and all these other things aren't taken into consideration where I'm building muscle, increasing my RMR, which is going to increase my daily burn. I'm going to burn more at rest, right?
They're looking for immediate gratification. Where am I going to get most bang for my buck? They're not looking at the whole picture.
They're manually trying to cut these calories with this consistent movement, which, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, we're nomadic as people. The quickest form of adaptation is cardio. So just for numbers' sake, I burnt 500 calories in my first workout on 3 miles. I did the same 3 miles the next week. I burned 350.
Yeah, it's going to be less. Your body becomes more efficient.
So efficient.
And that's a good thing. I mean, that's
great.
That's a great thing. We just need to be aware of it, right?
And then what signal are we sending?
Right. So going back, like if the muscle's atrophying, it's because it's not getting the proper signal. Or the next thing is it's not getting the proper nutrients that it needs in order to recover from whatever stimulus you're giving it, or you're so under eating or so under recovered that it has to go there to take nutrients in order to provide the body with the things that it needs to do in order to get through the day or recover from something else, whether that's disease, activity, whatever your activities of daily living, whatever the case is. So,
and your body's going to kind of regulate whatever is the most important to that metabolically, right?
Yeah. So you've got this, again, if it's not getting the right stimulus, or it's being basically underfed, or a combination of both. Yeah. Anything else? Have I left anything else out?
No, that's pretty much.
Yeah, sleep, or I guess which would be recovery, right? Sleep and stress.
Sure. So that goes back to the recovery.
Just even cardio and strength into one another. And the reason why it's not going to lose muscle.
Well, so here's the thing. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, where did the mindset come in that if I do cardio, I lose muscle, or I lose my ability to build muscle?
It might have even been the supplement industry with BCAAs coming in and talking about, I know, right? Intermittent fasted cardio.
Right, or fasted cardio.
Fasted cardio, drinking your BCAAs so you don't burn your muscle. Because I know that's a huge...
Oh, there's all been
I've heard that one, but...
It's a huge thing. Yeah. And so I don't know where it stemmed from. But as we've talked about before, if your heart sucks, you're going to not be able to recover between workouts, between sets, in between reps.
Right. So it trickles down. Yeah.
Being able to circulate nutrients and waste products to and from. Right. So I'm going to say that a higher aerobic system is going to increase your gains.
Sure. So again, but again, it's been demonized, or people are afraid of it. So let's just break it down real fast. The bottom line is, what's going to eat up your muscle? Not sending the right signals to it to build in the first place or maintain. Enough. And number two, you're underfed and or under recovered.
Yes.
So those are the two, like 1 to 3 things there that are going to impact you. Cardio is not going to make you lose muscle, right? If you're underfed and you're not sending those signals, you're probably going to see a reduction in muscle mass. Period. End of story. So, but then the question becomes like, okay, all right, I'm starting to understand, I'm starting to get this. I may be a little bit more accepting of this, but I'm still scared.
How do we schedule it?
How do we make this work in our program? Like, how do I still take care of my cardiovascular health, increase my cardiovascular endurance, while still building and or maintaining, muscle mass?
Absolutely.
So there's kind of like some basic approaches, that people take to kind of their cardio program and or their resistance program when they're starting to implement or trying to do them together. And some funky thought processes, again, going back to demonizing the stuff. But there's also the other end of the spectrum where it's like, no, cardio is the most important thing, because to your point, like cardio burns 800 calories, some arbitrary actuated value that's been posted on a treadmill somewhere on some chart.
Stop looking at that.
Right. And then there's this fat burning zone or whatever else. It's ridiculous. Right. And even going down to the heart rate monitors and the straps that these gyms are strapping on people when they walk in. And on day one, they do a resting heart rate, and then they figure out your quote unquote fat burning zone, whatever color zone that might be or whatever. And you're doing that, and then you don't adjust it again for 3 or 4 months.
All off theoretics.
Right. We just said in a week it's going to be different. So it's all theoretical. But it's led to a lot of confusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and people are clearly, and I think that there's some fear that's included in that confusion. So going back, like, how do we organize all this? We've talked a little bit about this in the past, but not to the extent that I think we're going to do now, which is, what are the basic ways we see people kind of implement cardio into their routine? One,
I think we need to define, what's your goal? Is your goal just to be general health and wellness? Because if that's the case, then 3 to 4 days of cardio could be fine. Then we're going to have to talk about intensity and duration and stuff like that, right? Or is your goal fat loss, right? Or changing your body composition. So if that's the case, then I would want the biggest bang for my buck. So I don't want to get on a treadmill for 60 minutes, right? And then have to do more work to 90 minutes in like 3 weeks or something like that. No, horrible. I'm going to work on muscle mass. I'm going to work on strength training.
I go up 5 pounds each resistance training, and I get this higher input of burn right? I get this higher input of burn where...
With resistance training?
Yeah. So now I'm adding another 30 minutes to get another 250 for
I would argue in that scenario, you're poorly planned.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You're not eating properly.
So again, it goes back to like, what are your goals?
Yeah.
So yeah,
if you're building tissue...
If you're adding 60 minutes of cardio to lose body fat and you're not in, I don't know, like the end stages of your show
That's an exaggeration.
prep,
exactly.
Yeah, but your main goal, but no, I don't.
Like you're
exaggerating, but this is the shit we see in the on the treadmills or the treadmills all the time in the gym. Yeah, I think you're poorly planned and you've got your priorities mixed up and you're
misinformed.
You're way misinformed. You're overeating or undereating. You're a mess. I think there's like maybe a few different ways we see people typically implement cardio into their program if their goal is like weight loss or like a maintenance of some body fat level or particular weight. And Jeff, you kind of outlined those for me earlier today. Maybe we just go back through those.
So typically what I see people doing is either one, they're resistance training and they're doing their cardio right after. You have ones that are doing cardio before, and this isn't a warm-up cardio. Like they're running a mile, 2 miles, like they're really getting after it. Then they're doing their resistance training. And then you have people that are doing the resistance or no resistance training and strictly cardio to reduce the weight that they have. So then they can start doing resistance training.
Right. Got you. Okay. So let's break that down a little bit because I think in context, the context I gave was like somebody that's trying to lose body fat or maintain weight or whatever. But there's also people that are involved maybe more of an endurance event, right? So like maybe it's a multi-sport athlete, a triathlon's an easy one I think most people can relate to, or a runner. I mean, just somebody that's a runner that's also maybe trying to implement some kind of resistance training into their program, which can be really tough, especially if you're a long distance type person, because you got to get that mileage in. And, doing that resistance training while it's important, oh man, that can be a real drag because it takes away.
For sure.
Well, basically you feel that the next day, like you're that much more fatigued, or you may have a little bit of DOMS, and that has to be very carefully managed because, like I have to program out my week where, I have a long day and then I do my resistance training after my long day and then do a short day the next day, something like that.
It's like power benchers that don't back squat before they go into a bench meet because of their shoulders.
Right.
Or they're doing a floor press, or they're doing a completely different type of bench press, right?
So programming is important,
Very
right?
important.
And how you organize yourself. But to your point with those different types of people, again, this is like your general gym goer who is trying to implement cardio and maybe some type of resistance training or not at all. Let's talk about the person and kind of what the impacts are. Now knowing if we're not giving the right stimulus and we're underfed and or under recovered, right? We're in some kind of, we can categorize that as recovery debt, right? If we're doing those things and we're putting the cardio at the front of our resistance training, what's happening there and how could that be impacting the recovery debt as well as the signals that are being sent?
Gotcha. So this is very common. Most people that are doing this are undereating. They're using a lot of their energy capacity at the beginning of the workout when they really need it for their resistance training.
Yeah.
Right. I know that people are like, I'm tired and I could walk. Well, think about that being that tired than deadlifting. No, I'd much rather walk. So why wouldn't you use all of your reserves to lift and resistance train? And then whatever energy you have left, you're able to go through cardio, right?
I think that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, and that is like, how do I maximize my caloric burn? And they see from their wrist gadget or, some chart somewhere, whether that's on the treadmill or again, some wearable that says they're burning more calories by doing their cardiovascular work first and then going to the resistance training. However, they're equating that in their head, right? But what they're not taking into account is basically the impact that they're going to have in taking away from the energy and the fuel that they have to put in the work into the resistance training piece.
Yeah.
And the benefits you get long after you've done that resistance training piece, before doing the cardio, which is the other thing we were talking about. Do your resistance training first, then your cardio next. Yeah. So I think we have to break that down a little bit. Like, first off, you stated before, the little chart that says you burn 800 calories on the treadmill, fuck that chart. Like, just stop it with that chart. There's no machine out there that's going to tell you exactly how many calories you burn.
Why is that?
Even with the technology that we have right now, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
We're never going to know.
And you know why? I'm just waiting.
Individual variants.
Well, that, but also, I mean, it doesn't take into account who the person is and what type of or the muscle mass that they currently have on their frame.
Yeah.
They're just looking at
way more than that.
The computer system. The computer system is taking into account like a certain height and weight.
Mass, height, weight. And then this is the exercise. This is how much burn.
Even if all that stuff was plugged into the machine, right? In terms of, these are just actuated values. They're a bunch of averages or it's guesswork is what it is. So stop that shit. So that's not a good measure of what you're doing. Now, I understand, like, if your goal is fat loss or weight loss, then you should be very highly focused, acutely focused on caloric burn through the day. But you also have to be acutely focused on caloric input for the day, right? It can't just be how much I burn. You have to be focused on the quality and the type of nutrients that you do put in. But stop looking at those charts and expecting that to give you the right kind of direction in order to have the maximum benefit from that stuff. The other thing, so then going back over to the resistance training piece, and this is what we were sort of getting to, is people don't understand the longer term, let's just say afterburn effects that you get from a solid strength training session when you apply the training appropriately, working at certain intensity levels, rest intervals, and taking time to recover. There's going to be a continued burning of calories. You're going to get a continued burning of calories, by the way, after your cardio, right, session as well, because your heart rate's up, it needs to recover.
Very short-lived, though.
Exactly.
For what you're talking about can be up to 2 days.
So, but we're talking about two different types of movement. You mentioned, this was mentioned earlier, and that is, one is very anabolic. That is the resistance training, versus one is very catabolic, which is the cardio training, and how your hormones and how your system, your body, let's just say, responds to those over the longer term. So doing your cardio before your resistance training, if your goal is to maximize benefit from both the types of training that you're doing and lose fat without losing muscle, it makes more sense to do it the other way around.
Absolutely.
If your goal is to be an ultra marathoner, right, and you're only able to train, or you have limited time to do your resistance training, either in season, during in season, or sort of in kind of a ramp up to your event, we'll call that somewhere in the meso and macro and micro cycles there, then it might make sense for you to do your resistance training after your cardio, simply as a matter of, hey, I can't have too much taken away from my actual run, my running training, through the resistance training piece, in which case you're very limited in terms of the type of signal, the intensity that you're doing that resistance training at, and that would be more maintenance, if you will, or even recovery or active recovery from your run through your resistance training.
That'd be like a maintenance lift to keep me strong so I can run at this capacity, right? That's all that is.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So, like, again, if you're that multi-sport athlete and you still need to be doing some resistance training, maybe resistance training is only happening 2 to 3 times a week, but you're programming it very specifically so that it doesn't take away from your run, your bike, and your swim.
Exactly.
Here's an example. Like, if I'm that endurance athlete and I come in and I have a very long ride, right? I have a very long, slow distance ride that I have to accomplish on, say, a Monday. And then on Tuesday, but I also need to get my 3 days of resistance training in, and I have that programmed in for, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for conversation's sake. But I know tomorrow I need to brick a workout. I need to do now a run and a swim, right? Tomorrow on Tuesday. But I've had this heavy ride, right? It's been fatiguing, and I got to somewhere fit in a resistance training between tonight and tomorrow. Well, the type of resistance training that I do, as compared to the order of events that I'm performing that brick, whether it's a run first or the swim first, could dictate what I focus on in my resistance training.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get too far down that
intensity.
path. I just want to make the point that you really need to be thinking about how you're organizing this training if you're coming at it from the cardiovascular focused like event that you're training for, or as an athlete as a whole. But that's not the majority of people. And that's not, those aren't the people that are saying cardio makes you lose muscle.
No.
Those are the people that we're trying to get to resistance train because they need more resistance training in their life. It's a much larger population of people that are going, well, I don't want to do cardio because I'm going to lose my muscle doing that.
Yeah.
So let's look at it the opposite way. So that would be coming in and doing your resistance training first, and how that differs from an energy systems perspective to doing and then performing your cardiovascular work afterwards. Because in the bigger picture, that is the more efficient way to do it for a few different reasons. So I think we should walk through those. One, when I'm doing resistance training, we've already covered this. You're sending an anabolic signal, right? You should be working at intensity levels that require some level of recovery in between so that you can effectively refuel, regroup, and hit another set or another rep, right? For the duration of whatever your workout is, for the focus on whatever that workout is going to be. Whether it's lower body focus or upper body focus or a mix or whatever. Maybe you're doing a body part split throughout the week. Then walking in to your cardio session. So the fuel system that I'm using during the resistance training is going to be anaerobic based, right? And it's also, again, sending anabolic signals. And it's not fatiguing me to the extent that I will not then be able to go and perform at a relatively high level, for that matter, in the cardio realm here, to get the cardiovascular benefit from my heart, lungs, circulatory system, as well as the caloric burning benefit that I would like to have in order to lose body fat or maintain my current weight. So maybe we kind of talk through that at a little bit of a deeper level. Or maybe we have. Maybe that's all people need to know. Like if I was going to go in and do, say, maybe this is the way I organized it. Maybe if I was going to go in and I had a lower body focus today, right? So legs are fried in my resistance training. I come out the other side. I know I need to get my 30 minutes because that's what I have programmed. That's what I want to do. That's what's in my program for today, my 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. I'm going to pick something that isn't going to trash everything that I just did with my lower legs.
I'm going to a row.
Yeah, maybe I do a row. Maybe I get on a bike, and
maybe
I just
go for a swim.
Yeah.
Maybe I go for a swim. That used to actually be my favorite thing to do. I go from legs to the pool. Because and part of that would be I could put a float buoy there. I could use a paddleboard, or I could use some hand paddles, or a kickboard, float buoy, or some hand paddles to take my legs sort of out of it. So I wasn't getting as fatigued because they were dead, right? They were dead at that point. So the pool is a good one if you don't have access to that. There's the skier that you mentioned, the rower, or something very low intensity like the bicycle versus thinking that you have to go run and pound it even, or pound that stuff even more, because that could be taking away from the recovery, going back to the recovery debt equation.
Absolutely.
If you're overdoing it on that day for that particular
1,000%. Yeah. And like you just said, I had a lower body day, and like maybe I got on the bike instead of running, right? And active recovery type of cardio, right? Whereas a lot of people aren't looking at it that way in the muscle sense, right? Where they're focused on the cardiovascular. But for you, you got cardiovascular input, and you also got an active recovery through those muscles because you're stronger than that. You're just pushing muscle.
Redistributed the blood throughout the body. I moved waste in and out. I moved nutrients to where they needed to go.
You didn't create more waste or more damage.
I get to downregulate up top. From a somatic perspective, I can kind of calm things down.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. I think there's even another piece to this, and with regard to how you're again comboing your resistance training against your cardiovascular training. And it's not thinking that now I'm in cardio, I have to burn the maximum amount of calories possible during this 30 minutes. Because if you combo if you're doing it in the way we're talking about, which is hit that resistance training hard, right? Not leaving stuff left over in the tank for your cardio.
Yeah.
Get Well, I can leave it out there on the field, if you will, through your resistance training. Now move into your cardiovascular training. You're going to recognize you don't have to train as hard, or you don't have to work as hard in order to get the benefits of both and the caloric burn, because you're going to get more caloric burn longer term through that anaerobic or the resistance training in the long run, even if you weren't doing.
Right. And we burned a shit ton of glycogen during that hard lifting workout. Now we're coming back to a more aerobic threshold and we're burning what? Fat.
Right. So when we go into our beta oxidative state, So it
comes down to programming.
It does come down to programming. And so you're not taking away from your leg day by doing cycling afterwards.
No.
In fact, you could be helping. It's just what type of cardio and how hard are you pushing it?
Yep.
Right, intensity. So it's intensity and type that probably play more into that than anything else. Again, like running seems to be like the go-to for most people because it's kind of the most accessible thing. And by the way, they feel like they burn more calories doing it because they're sweaty and there's a high energy cost there. But a lot of that has to do, again, going back to what CeCe was saying, is like the constant pounding or that what that activity actually entails and what the demand that you're placing on the body.
Heart rate's constantly high. Yeah.
So again, it's not that going back to the recovery debt piece, the cycling after or the swimming after the leg day could actually be helping you with the recovery process while getting you the benefits of the cardiovascular stuff.
Exactly.
And you're not burning muscle.
Exactly.
The only thing at this point that would, let's just say we all crammed it into one day, which we'll move to next in terms of time spans. Let's say we had to cram everything into one day and we were basing everything off of just this one workout that's resistance plus cardio combined. Even if you look at that and you look at how the recovery system, like that recovery debt, the only way you're going to have any negative impact on, well, that's not a fair statement, but the way that you're going to negatively impact is if you come in and you don't eat correctly or get proper sleep or eat.
You think Michael Phelps with 12,000 fucking calories had a six pack?
This comes back to our old analogy or our old acronym, which is eat squared plus C. Are you eating real food? Are you getting adequate macro and micronutrients? The type of diet that you're eating, does that provide you with the things that we just talked about? The sleep and stress management, is it being managed? And because what we're talking about is the third part or the last part only, which is the exercise piece. So that exercise programming is important, but it's no less or more important than any of those other things. That is what's going to eat up, quote unquote, eat up your muscle by not balancing those things. So that, I think what I was just alluding to there is like thinking about the time pieces, like how long, even if I didn't eat, for 5 hours after this workout, this resistance slash cardio session,
muscle.
Why not?
Just the body doesn't work that way. So if we just looked at it, glycogen storage and a bunch of other things, when the body starts pulling from muscle, and it depends on the energy system that we're in because we have fat as well, the body's going to pull from protein, like your actual muscle, at about 72 hours. And that's what we call starvation.
Yeah, that's assuming you're in basically like a starvation mode.
And that is like, that's not at 24 hours, and not at 12 hours, it's not at your little intermittent fasting 16 hours, that's none of that. That is 3 days in. There's
a little bit of depends in that in terms of your health,
for sure,
your health status and all that. But for the average, which is what we have to kind of boil this down to.
What we have on basic science is like 72 hours. And I'm going to even go down to 48 to 72. But that's where you start to see muscle breakdown. And when you are not ingesting anything to fuel the workout, that is the most important thing.
Under-recovered.
Yeah. But if you ate something, that's not coming from your muscle. You still have stores that you ate. It might not be as much as you need.
Right. But you're topping off the tank.
You're still, exactly.
So think of it as you have your gas tank, right? And you're starting to deplete this gas tank. That one gas tank or that one workout didn't deplete your gas tank.
Absolutely.
Right? It brought it down a little bit.
There's an issue.
The whole idea is you leave there. Now you eat a little bit properly and you top off the gas tank, right?
Yes.
And that topping off gives you you're already in recovery.
You're never at a half tank.
While you're topping off, your body is using what was already in the system. That was from yesterday's meals and the meals before that, and the sleep that you got before that, using that to recover and get you ready for the next workout. So if you don't eat, you're not topped off, and obviously you have the demands of the regular part of the day, and then maybe the next workout. So you're not fully recovering.
You might be a quarter down.
So now you're moving maybe move to a half tank because you take another quarter off. So now you're in recovery debt, right? You haven't fully recovered. Which is the importance of making sure that you put that fuel back in the right way at a regular timetable. That's the whole point
of why you worked out in the first place, right?
So to your point, like, even if you didn't eat for a full day after, you're still not burning up your muscle mass.
Not happening.
You're in recovery debt. And continuing this process by not, or now we're going to call it overtraining because you're under recovered.
Exactly.
But you shouldn't be training like this, right? Because you're not eating properly to support the demands of your needs. That's putting you further into recovery debt, which is also ultimately putting you. Part of that is a result of being in a caloric deficit for that recovery. And that over time, over a longer period of time, will start to create the next process, which is a downregulation of what we'll just call your metabolism. Now your body's looking at it going, oh, well, I'm not getting the gas. The gas tank isn't getting full. Well, unlike your car, right? Your body has the ability to now regulate the amount of energy. It's almost like a dual fuel system, if you will, like in a car, like you have your gas and your electricity. If you're not putting gas in it, ultimately it's going to have to go over to the electricity. And if you're not refueling either of those, you're fucked, right? You're going to run out of gas, or you're going to run out of
You could look at it
power
almost like that full tank is going to be, let's just call it 1,000 miles. After whatever you're doing, we go back to the same analysis. You're at 750 at the same tank.
Right. Same tank.
Right.
Your tank hasn't changed.
Exactly.
So you're under recovered, and now you're starting to get into, recovery debt. Now you're underfed, and over time, now your body, what we're getting at there is your body is going to down-regulate how much, it's going to down-regulate and become more efficient at using less fuel to get you through the same job. So, and part of that is going and finding it other places, metabolizing things a little slower, doing things a little differently, switching certain hormones on, other hormones off. There's a lot of things at play here that can ultimately mean atrophy of muscles because we're now robbing nutrients from them. And then we can get into muscle wasting, as it might be referred to, or eating up your muscle. But this is a process over a long period of time.
Very long.
This is not something that happens in a matter of hours or days. So don't panic, regardless of where you put your cardio and your resistance training next to one another. Right?
You overtrained one day and you missed a meal? Cool.
Take a day off.
Eat that or eat fucking double the next day and go train. Like there's so many ways to handle this.
Don't throw up your hands. Don't panic.
Exactly.
It's the same. It's the same thought process, but it's reverse of, oh my God, I went out last night and I had,
5 beers,
the steak, the cheesecake, or the pizza or whatever else. And now I got to go to the gym tomorrow and I got to get on the treadmill for an hour and burn 1,000 calories and then do my weight training that burns 300 calories. So that
that was a refeed.
I can equate or burn off the calories that I ate last night. For the same reason, your body does not work like that either.
You're not manually burning off calories that you like. I'm going out and I had 750 of fun calories, and tomorrow I'm going to burn 750 of
by punishing myself.
It's not the way it works. Probably those calories help build muscle and bring hormones back. And let's be real.
Could have been a good thing. Could have been a good stimulus.
Exactly.
It could have upregulated some things. So I think the takeaways here are, first, stop worrying about wasting muscle through cardio. Cardio is not a problem. Cardio is a benefit, right? Cardio can benefit your muscle building.
1,000.
If you're atrophying, if you're losing muscle density, go back to eat squared plus E, right? Are you eating enough calories? Are you getting adequate nutrients? Are, the foods that you're eating, are they equating the way you need them? Are you sleeping? Are you recovering? Because that exercise piece could be taking away from those things.
For sure.
And those are the things we really need to be evaluating. It's not the cardio that's taking away your muscle. And it's not gonna. Nope. It's you being underfed, under-recovered, and not sending the right signals in the proper order.
Because those same people that are doing the cardio, if they were just resistance training, I guarantee they'd still be under-eating. You get what I'm saying?
1000% agree.
So
yeah,
exactly. Mm-hmm. So I just think it comes down to, like us as a general, we just don't eat as much.
And in the proper amounts.
Because it comes from obesity is like, everyone's fat, where it's like, it's not really the issue. But
yeah. So stop demonizing the cardio, right? And stop worrying about it taking away from your muscle. Even you guys that are out there trying to build muscle, you can still do cardio. If you hate it and don't want to do it, don't fucking do it. But the health benefits that you can gain from it, the performance benefit that you can gain from it, from a recovery perspective, from a muscle building perspective, and through the different phases of your training program as you go through the line, which you should be phasing, can be hugely beneficial. So stop blaming cardio for burning muscle.